And the Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Facebook Live for the American Stroke Association. My name is Musna. I'm an occupational therapist. Today our live Q&A is on physical activity and exercise after a stroke. This is part of our virtual Next Step program to empower stroke survivors and their caregivers to reach their wellness goals after a stroke. If you'd like more information on what we're going to talk about today or anything else related to your wellness journey, please visit our website at americanstroke.org. There you will find links to YouTube, Instagram, and our Facebook, and also links to our blog. On this post, there should be a link with a form to submit questions and comments. Kylie's going to add that shortly. Oh, American Stroke Foundation. Sorry, did I say association? Okay, my bad. Stroke, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we have, it looks like 6 people joining us, so please start submitting your questions and comments regarding exercise and your attempt to kind of build up your endurance, whether it's aerobic or muscular after a stroke. Share your experience so we can help you problem solve any situations or challenges, and you can share your knowledge and insight with other stroke survivors. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to exercise is checking in with your doctor and making sure you are aware of your safe blood pressure ranges. If you had a stroke, especially and high blood pressure was a contributing cause, you want to make sure that you're cleared for exercise. You know what kind of exercise you're cleared for, and you know your safe ranges. So your doctor can tell you where your blood pressure needs to be to make sure it's not where it needs to be before you're good to start exercise, where it needs to be during and after exercise. And then in terms of heart rate, we want to kind of stay in the moderate level for intensity of exercise. So the American Heart Association recommends 20 to 60 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 to 7 days a week, and that's referring to a moderate level of exercise, or moderate intensity of exercise. So what does moderate mean? It means that it's about 65 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate you can calculate approximately by taking your age and subtracting it from 220. And then 65 to 75% of that is where you should be during exercise. Again, specific guidance needs to be through your doctor for that, but that's the moderate level for your heart rate. An easy way to determine if the level at which you're working out is considered moderate is something called the talk test. So if you're engaging in physical exercise, you should be able to talk but not sing during the physical activity, and that's how you know that you're at a moderate level. There's also something called the Borg Perceived Exertion Scale. That's a scale from 6 to 20, and moderate level on that scale corresponds to about 14 to 16 on that scale. But I think the talk test is a lot more user-friendly. It's intuitive. Just talk and see if you can do that. Okay, Aaron says, I am starting to work on my right arm. My stroke was 6 years ago, and all my doctors know this and say go for it. My arm is really sore. Any recommendations? So, Aaron, are you saying that your arm is sore like on a daily basis because of the stroke, or are you saying your arm is sore as a result of going for it when it comes to exercise? So regardless of which one it is, it's a good point to bring up that pain can often be a barrier or a challenge to initiating exercise or getting the amount in that's recommended. And so understanding pain, we had a prior Facebook Q&A on it, on chronic pain and understanding what that is relative to acute pain, which refers to more of a recent injury. So please refer back to that video if you have specific questions. But you really do need to understand your body and when it's telling you that you need to stop or do something different. So before you engage or re-engage in an exercise program after a stroke, you really want to look at your physical activity level before the stroke, right? Trying to do a 180 and become like a triathlon level athlete if you are relatively sedentary before your stroke is not setting yourself up for success, and it's not realistic, right? So look at your activity level before, look at your health level before the stroke, and that's kind of what you want to build up to. You want to use that as a reference point. Don't, start a new activity and expect to feel comfortable in it and get the effectiveness that you need if it's completely novel relative to what you used to do. So that related to pain means really understanding, am I getting the signal, especially from my affected side, my hemiplegic side, am I getting accurate signals from that so that I know when I have muscle fatigue or I've worked to fatigue? Am I going to know if something is rubbing against it the wrong way? Am I going to know if I have skin breakdown? So really doing a check-in and making sure you approach activities in the safest and most effective way possible. So Erin clarifies that her arm is sore both before and after exercise, but really sore after. So there are different kinds of soreness. If something feels like it is inflamed or hurt or something like that, ice afterwards can help. If you want to warm up your muscles before, a little bit of heat with stretching can help. So really kind of like pre-gaming for exercise. You don't want to go from, a prolonged position of sitting in the same position and go right into exercise. You want to warm your body up, change positions, get the blood flowing, drink water, move your body, do some breathing, and really, start to give signals from brain to body that you're about to engage in exercise. Make sure that whatever you're going to be focusing on, whether it's leg strength, arm strength, aerobic or whatever, that you've done the proper stretching and nothing feels tight. So that's where a little bit of heat or massage with your hands can help. And then starting with the activity then. And then making sure you have a proper cool down, which involves really stretching and trying to maintain that elongated position. Those are two things that can help Erin with soreness. If the soreness doesn't go away, either by that night or say day 1 or day 2, then it's time to kind of look at what you're doing and what your desired result is. And that's where you problem solve either with your doctor or your OT or PT on kind of what it is you're looking to get from the exercise, and then maybe modifying the exercise. The great thing about exercise and the goals of health is there's more than one way to get to the same endpoint. So if one exercise doesn't work for you, that's okay. There are lots of modifications to make. You can always it takes a little bit of, sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity, sometimes it takes, reaching out to the community and finding out what other people are doing, and that's where a forum like this, we hope, can serve everyone is how do you modify exercises if you're only able to do things one-handed? How do you modify things from a wheelchair level? How do you access getting in and out of, standard weight machines that aren't accessible? There are ways to do it all. There are no limitations to the kind of exercises you can do. You just have to, like with everything else, take the time to kind of problem solve. Kimberly says, my mom is right at a year post-stroke. She exercises daily with bands and directions from completing PT. There seems to be no further significant improvement. How to keep stroke patients encouraged when this happens? That's a good question, Kimberly. So you have to look at what your goals are. Is she looking to regain strength post-stroke, or is she looking to maintain her, current level of function? So when people are issued home exercise programs, they're issued with a very specific purpose. We were actually at the Stroke Foundation. We had a lecture yesterday about how, cardiac rehab, or really getting your cardiovascular system in shape after a stroke, is really not as high of a priority as it should be in the rehab process. So someone has a stroke, which is a huge event for the brain and body to heal from. And then they go right into rehab with the expectation to learn skills and techniques, but they're doing it from a deconditioned state, right? Why is exercise and getting the body to a stronger place not embedded into that process to facilitate outcomes when it comes to, you know, transfers or getting dressed or taking a shower, activities which will wear you out, as any stroke survivor or caregiver who assists stroke survivors knows. So I would say check in with your mom and check in with her physical therapist on what the intention was with that, and maybe it's time to advance to bands with more resistance, or maybe it's time to move from bands to free weights. You know, the quickest, shouldn't say the quickest, a really good way to reliably increase your strength is body weight exercises and body weight training. So push-ups, whether that's from wheelchair level and kind of pushing up from the armrest, or going up against a wall and doing wall push-ups. If you can get on the floor, doing modified push-ups, doing planks, anything where you're putting weight through your arms and legs will strengthen you, because it's real weight. It's a functional exercise versus just using free weights to work one muscle in one plane of movement. And then when it comes to aerobic exercise, depending on where you are in your journey, you can't go wrong with walking, or if you're in a wheelchair, you know, propelling your wheelchair and really working on those propulsion movement patterns that will protect your shoulder. When you do it the way that keeps your shoulder intact, it will work you in a cardiovascular manner. So finding out what your goals are and what the intent is, and then figuring out why your current home exercise program is not meeting those needs is what I would suggest. Kimberly says she wants full recovery. Yeah, I think, you know, validating her feelings. I'm glad that it sounds like, because you are aware of her frustration, that you know, you're either present when it happens or she's shared kind of her feelings of frustration with you. I think that's just the first part. Like, you can actively be working and wanting to get stronger and be frustrated at the same time with the pace of getting stronger or recovery. So, you know, what does better, you know, that's kind of a blanket statement. I want to be better. I want to be fully recovered. Maybe having a discussion and kind of fleshing that out a little bit. What is it that you want to do, right? We don't want to just be better for the sake of being better. We want to be better to be able to engage in something that's important to us. So what is it that you want to get back to? How are you going to measure progress? When I can, you know, go out to, you know, eat with my family, when I can go for a walk around the block, when I can get my own mail, when I can get dressed without, you know, being wiped out for the rest of the day. What is it that you're measuring your goals against? So really having that conversation and then working towards that. The best exercise is real life activity. We kind of think about exercise as like, you know, my life, and then like exercise as like its own distinct thing. It has to look a certain way, but some of the healthiest people, stroke or no stroke, are the ones that just lead very active lifestyles. So they are very movement friendly. You know, they don't have time built in for like traditional exercise, like we think of going to the gym or doing some form of exercise, but they're engaged in physical activity. They walk their dog. They don't sit for too long. They take the stairs instead of taking the elevator. There's lots of ways to incorporate that physical activity that's directly related to engaging in activities that are important to you. So, Kimberly says, thank you, you're welcome. Erin says, yes, exercise doesn't have to be in a gym. Yeah, I think that's, you know, as long as you are moving, that's the most important thing. Meet yourself where you are. This notion of there's only one way to achieve health is outdated. You need to figure out what it is that you're looking to do, and then find ways to use your environment and what's around you and use your current level of function to work with that instead of working against that. What other questions do we have? Questions or comments? Let's see if I missed anything. Nope. Okay. So exercising, let's talk a little bit about if you are in a wheelchair. If you are in a wheelchair and you are able to transfer out of the wheelchair, I strongly recommend you try that for when you are trying to get your heart rate up or increase your muscular strength. So either you or your caregiver can assist transferring into a chair. Don't use a rolling chair. Use a chair with a strong, that has arms on it if you're able to, and a back so you're supported. Chair with your feet on the ground, and that will give you a more posture-friendly foundation to do your exercises from. The other thing is that when you are exercising, the goal is not to get the most reps in possible or use the heaviest weight possible. The goal is to have quality movement. That registers with your brain and body a lot more than kind of flinging things around and using like momentum and gravity to get the movement done. So don't worry about, hey, if I do this with proper form, and proper form at its most basic level just means that if I'm working on my shoulder, am I starting my movement from my shoulder? Am I keeping the rest of my arm in neutral? Or if I'm trying to do something with my shoulder, is someone or am I noticing that I'm, straining at my neck? I'm twisting my back. I'm trying to put my whole body into it versus just working the shoulder. The quality of the movement, even if to you it seems like less movement, is much more important for the end result, for sure. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can transfer out, get in a stable position, and then exercise with what you have. You don't have to go out and spend money. So what can you use instead of bands? You can use a stretchy t-shirt. If you want more resistance, you can use a bed sheet. If you want to use a weight, you can use soup cans, or you can do empty water bottles and fill them with sand. Anything that is around you, you can use to strengthen your body. Number one is your own body weight. So, anyone who's done a transfer or has done multiple transfers during the day knows that that is an excellent upper body workout. So incorporate that. Be mindful of that and really use that so that it helps you in real life, one-to-one. For leg strength, if you are in a wheelchair and you cannot transfer out of the wheelchair for whatever reason, if you can get up against the wall and have someone help you position your feet against the wall and press into that, that can help. It's also a stretch. If someone can help you stand, not for the purpose of actually transferring, but just standing as if you were going to change out your cushion and then sit back down and weight bearing through your legs, that's good. You can do, when you do lateral weight shifts, that will also put weight through one leg versus the other. So there are lots of ways. They're not, as an occupational therapist, I kind of, have a toolbox because I get to, I work with stroke survivors and, they share their tips and tricks with me. But if you don't know where to start, just think about how you need to be able to move to do your daily activities and just practice those movements. You don't need to get any fancier than that. But always start with checking with your doctor. You want to exercise safely. If you exercise and you are outside your recommended levels, recommended ranges for blood pressure, or if you are exercising through pain that you shouldn't be, you will not get the benefit from that exercise because you're working out in a stress state. And when you work out in a stress state, it just adds to your stress. It doesn't add to your cardiovascular, muscular function. Okay, Aaron says planks are good, don't need a lot of equipment. Yes, planks are excellent. So you can do planks. So if you think about a plank, if someone's not familiar, like when you do a push-up from a starting position, and you just hold that starting position, that's a fully extended arm plank. You can also do it down on your elbows. You can also do side planks. the purpose of those is, again, weight bearing and really stabilizing your core, but you don't need to be able to get down on the floor to do them. Aaron asks, any recommendations for yoga? I think, the great thing about YouTube is it makes a lot of things readily accessible to us that we don't have to put, you just Google it, doing yoga in a wheelchair. There are lots of different types of yoga, but the foundation is intentional, slow, controlled movements. And so really just Googling, 5, whatever it is you're looking for. So yoga for strength, yoga for your heart, yoga for stretching, yoga in a wheelchair, quick yoga workouts. Like those are, what is it that you're looking for? And just look for that. And you can at least have a starting point. The other thing is if you've ever been to a yoga class or you have an interest, just go and see. And, any good yoga teacher will be happy to help you find a way to be able to engage in the process. So, and if you don't feel comfortable going in person, then that's what YouTube is for. Okay. So say that you are going from, when you kind of do an inventory of where you are, you're going from pre-stroke, if you reflect back, you're going from a sedentary kind of level of physical activity, and now you're trying to rehab post-stroke, just for the purpose of recovering from the stroke. Where do you start? The first thing is being able to manage your own body weight in the wheelchair, and also being able to move around in your bed, right? Scooting up in bed requires arm strength. Getting out of bed requires leg strength. Getting up from the toilet requires arm and leg strength. So really focusing on those movements, really focusing on, hey, I have to push up through my arms like this to be able to get up from the toilet, or I have to be able to push through my legs like this to be able to get out of bed. And then just repeating those movements for the purpose of being more mobile and either reducing the workload for you or your caregiver. That's the starting point. Once you can start to gain more endurance related to your daily activities that you have to do, you can move to things like the NuStep machine. If you're part of a gym, or you can Google where NuStep kind of does their machines. That's a machine that offers the ability to work both your arms and your legs from a recumbent position with weight resistance. That's just one example. You don't have to use a NuStep machine, but it's low to the ground. It provides a stable surface versus a bike that's kind of used for spinning or cycling, which is higher off the ground. If you don't want to transfer out into a NuStep machine, then you can use your wheelchair and you can have someone move the benches for you in the weight training area. That will get your heart rate up, but it'll also let you work on your muscles. If you have any issues with grip, I would recommend looking into Velcro gloves that will let you form and maintain a grip around most gym machines. So really just getting a lay of the land, figuring out where it is you want to do your exercise or physical activity, checking it out, and then seeing what you need, and then going there. And if you can go with a buddy or a caregiver, even better. Everyone goes through a process of figuring out how physical activity is going to work through their life, for their life, not just after a stroke. So feelings of feeling overwhelmed or intimidated are part of the process, but please don't let that stop you from moving your body in a way that empowers you and that you enjoy. Alyssa says, I do yoga from YouTube. That's great. YouTube is a great resource. And the American Stroke Foundation, on our YouTube channel, we have some videos on exercise from both seated and standing level that you can check out as well. Alyssa says, we have a stationary bike and a treadmill. Awesome. Aaron says, I didn't know they had a sit-down elliptical until ASF. I got one. I love it. That's great. Yeah, they do. A standard gym is going to have, what we consider just the standard typical equipment. It's not impossible to get in and out of that after a stroke, even if you are not able to independently get out of a wheelchair. It's just more of a process. However, there are, and hopefully it continues to become a more commonplace things, there are areas in the country that have accessible gyms. I don't know, I will look into it to see if there's like a one-stop place where you can search for it, but I went to grad school in St. Louis, and Paraquad is a community agency that works on empowering every person who has a mobility challenge or is a wheelchair level, and they opened an accessible gym a few years ago, and it's filled with equipment that makes getting in and out, it removes the challenge from that, regardless of how you're getting in and out from a wheelchair level or otherwise. And all the trainers are experienced in working with people who don't move like the way that most people who use the gym move. So they are out there, and I hope it becomes more commonplace, because really a user-friendly machine is user-friendly for everyone. So if you go to the gym and you find something that you really want to do and it really does not work for you, as a stroke survivor, please let the front desk know, and let them know how they can help make a facility that is welcoming and accessible to everyone. They won't know until you give that feedback. Okay. Other questions and comments? 10 minutes a day is really all you need to get started. And if it's 5 minutes a day, that too. I think anything that, again, use the talk test is a great, that's where you want to build up to. It's not where you have to start. Start with what you can do. So you can buy inexpensive, what am I looking for? Like foot bikes, pedaling bikes that are really low to the ground. They should be less than $30. Nothing too fancy. You don't need, like, you know, the thing that tracks steps and all that. And you can do that from a wheelchair level and really get your legs moving. If you're not in a wheelchair and you're able to walk, a walk around the block is all you need to get started. Stretching, just really trying to lengthen things. We tend to kind of, the longer we sit or the longer we stay in one position, kind of the more compact everything becomes. And so you want to think about stretching and really extending everything. So really stretching through your fingertips, stretching through your toes. If you can, ask a caregiver to help. Okay. Do we have, let me see. Do we have any questions on that form? No. Okay. I just want to make sure, because we just started offering the form for questions, so I just want to make sure we didn't miss any of that. Aaron says, the headsets are great too, a lot of choices. Is that like a virtual reality thing? They do have, I'm not up, is it? Yeah. Is it headphones, Aaron, or is it VI? Yeah. Okay, yeah, the virtual reality kind of stuff. Yeah. Those are great too. Just make sure, because they add weight to your head. So just make sure that you have, you know, the neck and shoulder strength to support that weight. Because if you start doing, you know, if you get into that atmosphere and you get engrossed in the activity, you don't want to make any sudden movements that strain those muscles. Thank you for sharing that, Aaron. Alyssa says, I did Pilates this morning. I'm not my 16-year-old cousin. Pilates is great. I'm glad you brought that up. Pilates is actually becoming, it's becoming more commonplace to incorporate that and to have reformers, which are machines to do one specific type of Pilates. Those are becoming more commonplace in rehab gyms. At my last job, we just got one before I left. But it's amazing to see how quickly the changes happen, because Pilates encourages, again, that elongated movement and really the stretch with the strengthening. And it's moving in a more intentional way that people are used to. So combining that with resistance training, whether it's using weight machines or your own body weight, can be amazing. And I think there's more and more evidence. I know in the literature for recovery after spinal cord injury, Pilates is a big part of it now. And I think we're going to see more and more research out there for the benefit for stroke survivors. I think it's a great way to get your affected side involved in a way that makes it feel like a part of your body, as opposed to working out, you know, something that's weaker than the stronger side. It really kind of ties in your whole mind body together. So I'm glad you have access to that, Alyssa. Pilates is great. If you don't have access to a Pilates studio or a Pilates machine at your gym, there again are Pilates videos on YouTube that you can start incorporating, really focusing on starting from the core and a solid core and then that lengthened position. Pilates is awesome. I'm glad. Maybe we'll get a Pilates machine here. Hinted. Okay. What other questions or comments do we have? So just to kind of like summarize what we've talked about before, check with your doctor, get your safe blood pressure levels, calculate your maximum heart rate, use the talk test to know when you've reached a moderate intensity level of exercise, which is kind of the minimum that is recommended to keep your heart, brain, and body healthy. That's where you want to start. And then listen to your body and know your goals, right? What is it that I'm looking to do? People just don't want to be strong for no reason. People don't want to be able to move for no reason. It's to participate in life. So how are you measuring that progress? And there's no better movement than real life movement. So that's kind of the summary of that. There are a lot of trends when it comes to physical exercise. So, you know, like, well, maybe it's not a trend. They're kind of like cycles that the physical exercise community goes through. So like, you know, popularity of boot camp style classes, or popularity of high intensity interval training, or popularity of, you know, boxing classes and stuff like that. Don't, like, always be mindful of your body. As long as you can safely explore an activity, go for it, but don't feel like, you know, the newest, greatest thing is always the next thing. You just have to move your body in a way that feels safe and comfortable, and you will get stronger and be able and work towards maximum recovery and wellness after a stroke. A lot of times when you're in rehab, you get a home exercise program specifically for that affected side, or specifically for what's changed after a stroke, whether it's balance or fine motor coordination, or lower leg strength. But make sure you also have a dialogue about general fitness, because, you know, the whole body, like the half that's affected by the stroke or whatever has changed from the stroke, will only work, like, will work. Having whole body fitness will only help that. It won't hurt that. So make sure you have guidance on that too. Movement is good for you. Motion is lotion. That's, like, you know, the saying that rehab professionals have. So if you have pain, movement should make it better. If movement does not make it better, then there's something else going on. Your body was designed to move. So after a stroke, it's more challenging, but it's still part of what your body and brain crave. And so be your own advocate and really have that dialogue to have it walk out of, you know, outpatient rehab, home health, or, you know, if you're years out after a stroke, work with your support network to really have a movement-based program that works for you, informal or formal. Judy says best resources for exercise videos. I mean, the start point I would say is looking at YouTube. Always make sure, again, that you're starting from a level that's safe for you. Don't do anything that's the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe start with, like, looking at, movement exercises, mobility exercises, balance exercises for stroke survivors, like being very specific in that so that you get resources from someone who has a medical background, or it's from, a hospital or a medical organization. You kind of don't want to be using your initial recommendations from someone who's just exercising to show the latest thing, So YouTube is a great resource. Google is a great resource. There are a lot of quality videos, handouts, written materials, whatever form you need to help make that accessible. Alyssa says, I'm slowly not needing blood pressure meds. That's great. Exercise is medicine, just like food is medicine. And that was one of our prior Facebook Live Q&As that you can refer back to. You can change a lot about your body, including post-stroke challenges, just with movement. Get those signals going. Get your brain to reliably get the feedback from your body that you're there, you're strong, you're capable. And those connections will rewire. Okay. Last call for questions and comments. So I just want to say next week we will not have a live Q&A. The American Stroke Foundation is having an annual luncheon to honor our community partners. So we will be offline next Thursday, but the following Thursday we will be talking about memory changes after a stroke. So I think, we all have days where we would consider ourselves forgetful, and after a stroke that picture can be more complicated, right? What is quote unquote normal? What is due to the stroke? When should I be worried? What can I do to help my memory? So those are all things that we'll be discussing. We welcome questions and comments. There'll be a link on our Facebook post to submit questions in advance, so please do so that we can make sure this works for you. Okay. Alyssa says Children's Hospital of Philadelphia research. I think that was in response to best resources for exercise videos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alyssa. Okay. So if you are joining us for the first time today, I encourage you to look back at our Facebook Live Q&As that we've done so far, because I think that, there's definitely a common thread of advocating for yourself and really starting and meeting yourself where you are. There's no right way. There's no one picture of health. The picture of health will be specific to you. So take an inventory of what it is you want. Activate your network, use your resources, make your voice heard, and start from there. You can't go wrong with nourishing your body with good food, movement, breathing, and feeling your feelings, all of which have been covered in previous Facebook Q&As. And if you are joining us and you've joined us for all of them, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your questions and comments, and I hope that this is value added for you. This is kind of a new format for us because we really want to, the American Stroke Foundation, our Next Step program is in person. With this virtual component, we really are trying to make the information accessible to as many people as possible. So we're open to trialing different formats. So please let us know what will work best for you. One of the things that we were kind of talking about back and forth is maybe, having a video on YouTube or Facebook where it's 30 to 40 minutes of kind of talking about whatever the topic of the week is, and then maybe a week or two later having a live Q&A session so that you have time to kind of look through the video, get your questions down, think about it, and then do it that way. So if you think that would be a great option, please let us know. Okay. Let's see. Aaron says that sing, bring Sally up, bring Sally down. You can do push-up, hand raises so much. Other songs too. Are you talking about music that's good to work out with? Yeah. Music is great. Make your playlist. I mean, that's a starting point too. Really do something, exercise doesn't have to be drudgery. Get the music blasting, move your arms, you know, even if you're doing everything seated, that's fine. Just do a leg march. Get those arms stretched and jam out to some music. The body doesn't know that exercise doesn't have to be fun. Doesn't not have to be fun. Wait, which way am I trying to say it? Exercise can be fun. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. Denise says, are we able to watch the portion control Zoom from April 7th? Is that the SES that they're referring to, maybe? Okay.
We'll check into that.
Okay, Denise, we can check into it. If you're talking about the stroke education series, you can look through the link through our website. Although that may have been the one that we didn't record due to technical issues. So we will figure out a way to get that information, Denise, to you. If you want to email us with your email address, we'll make sure you get the information you want. And Aaron says look on YouTube as well. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Reminder that we will not be here next Thursday, and the following Thursday we will be talking about memory challenges after a stroke. Okay. Any last questions? No? Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us.